Neon lights, they're cutting through the night. City streets, they call out to the fight. A skyline hums alive, never still. Chasing dreams, we run against the thrill. Young hearts in a glow, in a pulse of the street. We rise, we fall, where the shadows meet. Underneath the lights, we're the ones they'll talk about. Young, wild and free, let it all scream out.
Jerks, I'm back. I am back. How are you doing tonight? I just watched a little video on CBS Boston. Bunch of individual interviews, 7 of them. I think 7, 6 or 7. All the candidates for Norfolk County DA's office. Christina Rex spent a little time interviewing them all one-on-one. We're going to play some of the video tonight. And have some more coffee and stay up a little late. A little late for me. Cricket hat. We could also maybe talk about Tyler Robinson today. Some of the video. Some of the surveillance video. The judge decided not to allow because the police or the prosecution had marked it up and highlighted things. They had altered it. They had altered some of the video, and they don't know if they have the original sources. It's law enforcement screw-ups. A lot of law enforcement screw-ups out there, we notice, in these cases. That this looks like one of them. We'll see what happens at this Tyler Robinson trial. And right now it's the prelim hearing. It's just to decide if he goes to trial. Day 1 was today. I'm freaking out because I lost a filling during it. I'm still kind of... I lost a filling. I don't know. Did I swallow it? What do you do when you lose a filling? Where do they go? How did I not know I swallowed it? So yeah, we're gonna play a little video. There was, basically, if I started watching some of these videos, and I will say I thought it was a little strange at the end. Christina Rex is timing these candidates, giving them 30 seconds to give their elevator pitch. It was like, oh, we're going to give you equal time, 30 seconds. But some of the interviews were 40 minutes and some of them were 13 minutes. So, I mean, kind of strange. But I get it. I mean, focus on the campaigns that are most likely to win is what she did. You'll see that Juna Perkins got a 23-minute interview. And you'll see that Adam Deich got the longest interview, it looks like. He got 40-plus minutes. Which is, I thought that was interesting, because I don't think he's quite the front runner, but he could be. It seems like he's starting to surge again. I will give him credit lately. It looks like he is building some momentum, and I think that he is the most attractive to this media. I think one of the things I've seen so far in these interviews, we're going to play a couple of them, is, she asked Connor about his contributions. It was obvious what she was saying, but she didn't say it. Like, I don't get why Christina Rex didn't ask about the conflict of interest with Connor, with his donations, and with Deich, with both of them. She was just, I felt like she was way too soft with them. Both of them. I mean, she was, I'd say she was tougher on Jimmy Barakat. So far, what I've seen, she was tougher on Jim Barakat on the fact that he doesn't really have any fundraising, that he's got like less than $1,000 in the bank. She was tougher on him about that, which felt kind of mean, actually. Than she was with the 2 front runners, the 2 supposedly. I mean, I'd say there's 3 front runners. I'd say Juna Perkins, Greg Connor, Adam Deich are at the top of the ticket right now, I believe, in this race. I think it's going to be one of them that will win it. But she didn't ask them the tough questions. Kind of disappointed. I mean, I like Christina Rex, but I felt like she could have been a little more probing in some of these questions, especially related to the trust issue and the conflict of interest. Let's play. Actually, I want to ask you all, which video do you want us to go over first? Do you want to go over Daesh? Do you want to go over Connor? Or do you want to go over Juna Perkins? Which one do you want to watch first? We're gonna start with Norfolk DA Democratic candidate Bob Jubenville. He got a 14-minute and 43-second interview here. I don't think it really makes a difference because I don't know how many people are actually going to watch this on YouTube. But you know, and especially because it's really all of this was just packaged to a 2-minute clip on television. That's really the biggest benefit for all these folks is they get on television for 2 minutes tonight on the nightly news, probably the 5 o'clock, the 5:30, the 6 p.m., the 6:30 WBZ News Boston. They're on TV tonight. So I'm going to bring up Bob Juvenile first because I feel like Bob Juvenile, he gave an interesting answer that I'm not necessarily disagreeing with. Surprisingly, even though I don't like the dude, not Juvenile, the guy he's talking about. He's talking about dismissing the charges against Turtle Boy. And listen to why he says, and I can't disagree with him. I don't know how this is going to play out in Norfolk County. Listen to his response. This is Bob Juvenile. Christina Rex is asking him about the charges against Aiden Carney.
Yes, yeah. And it just ruined the office. It really did.
On that note, the fallout from that case will be in the hands of the next DA, and that is that any cases that Michael Proctor touched that could potentially unravel, that's still going on. You know, Brian Walsh was convicted recently.
Yeah.
Michael Proctor was part of the investigation into his case. Miles King's case is ongoing.
Right.
What's your plan to deal with Proctor's cases?
You've got to review every single one of those cases from top to bottom.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of work. What I am going to do is get a group of retired judges that I respect, some retired defense attorneys, some retired assistant DAs that I respect, and have them come in and go through all of those cases and write a report on all of them and give it to the public. There's been a lot of holdback with emails, not releasing them until they had to. Well, we know the emails between the trooper and the sergeant from Canton. Does anybody have to say how disgraceful they were? Of course not. But to me, they knew that. The DA's office knew that before the first trial because some of Proctor's emails got in evidence. State prison.
Hold on. We're going to go back.
Case will be in the hands of the next DA, and that is that any cases that Michael Proctor touched.
I thought I had all this lined up, but I didn't. So let's find it. God damn it.
Heads come in that didn't know anybody. Now let's look at the evidence. Prosecuted before. If he said to Morris, he said to me, "Do you want to prosecute this?" I said, "Mike, I've never sat on that bench. I'm not trained as a prosecutor." And the guy they chose wasn't. He got overcharged. And I hope it wasn't for the reason I'm thinking.
Which is?
Which is, you overcharge somebody, you send the case to the jury. The jury says not guilty. Mr. Morrissey wasn't a trial lawyer.
You would want to review it before it went to trial.
100%. Look, I know.
Skipping around trying to
What would
find
your
it.
staffing plan be? Like, would you be looking to clean house?
Okay, hold on.
That there was some like
Oh,
personal
they
animus
hated
there.
him. They hated
This is it right here.
You can prove that that person isn't going to show up on a summons.
This is what I liked right here.
In front of us.
He's talking about when they arrested Turtle Boy. Let's rewind this a little bit. This is the part I was trying to find.
And right around the time when the new DA would get sworn in.
Well, I would postpone that if I get in. I want to look at that case.
You would want to review it before it went to trial.
100%. Look, I know he got under the skin of the DA's office big time. But I don't know everything he did, but he seemed to do what reporters do. Only he was kind of heavy-handed with it.
Okay.
Kind
You
of.
know, he did his own thing, and it got a lot of people upset that he was asking questions and so forth. So they prosecute him. They get a warrant out of a district court. Now, I'm a clerk now of a court. You don't get a warrant out of me unless you can prove that that person isn't going to show up on a summons. They arrest him in front of a school bus with his children getting on the bus.
So you're suggesting that there was some like
Oh,
personal
they
animus
hated
there.
him. They hated him. Yeah. So I would look at that, and personally, unless there's something in it that I don't know, I'd null press that case tomorrow if I was the DA today.
Really?
Get rid of this saga. It's been terrible. The money spent on it is outrageous to the taxpayers. Get rid of it.
Okay. What would you mentioned the ADAs, just what would your staffing plan be? Like, would you be looking to clean?
That was Bob Juvenile. He was talking about Turtle Boy. He would look at that case. It sounds like he would get rid of it. And a lot of it was what he said right there in the beginning. He felt like it was too personal. And it's the point that I make. I think it's his best defense, actually, is that Tully was investigating him. So again, these are all CBS Boston, Christina Rex. And I was a little critical of some of the questions she asked, but I will give Christina Rex this. She did go out and interview every single candidate. I don't think anybody else has done that. And she did it all at once. Like that's work. She did some work. She puts the work in. All right? So, got to give her that. This is Greg Connor. Let's watch a little of this Greg Connor interview.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to give you the easy beginning catch-all. Why don't you just give us the introduction to yourself as a candidate?
Sure. My name is Greg Connor. I've been an assistant district attorney in the Norfolk District Attorney's Office for 25 years. I left in March of 2026 to run for office. Lived in Norfolk County almost my entire life, with the exception of going to Boston College and Boston College Law School, and lived in Boston. He's kind of on top of me.
That probably helps.
It does help, yeah.
Why did you make the decision to leave the office and run for DA?
There are a couple reasons. One was to run for district attorney requires a lot of time. And to be a full-time candidate, I thought that that's the best way to do it. Two, I needed some separation as far as I didn't agree with the office entirely on everything it did. And to stay in the office and be critical of it, I thought put the office in a bad spot as well as myself in a difficult spot. I didn't want a case of divided loyalties, so I wanted to do that. And also ethically, there are rules on campaign financing as a public employee, and in order to do it in an ethical manner, I wanted to make sure I didn't commit any problems, and I left the office.
So since you were at the office for 25 years, was running to be the district attorney always on your radar, or was there some catalyst that made you decide to do it?
There were a couple different catalysts. You know, did I have that wistful thought of yeah, I'd love to be the district attorney, but in the meantime, I've always just been doing my thing.
I'm muted again. God damn it. It's funny. The whole thing about Greg Connor here is he's basically what he's saying right there is that he, because of ethics, because of legalities, he left the office of district attorney office. He left his job at the DA's office so he could legally collect money, campaign donations, so he could shake down the people that worked in that office for campaign donations. That's why he left the office. That's what he's saying right there. I wish she had checked him on that. I wish she had just given him a little pushback and said, dude, Are you saying you left the office so you could collect money from the employees there? Because Jimmy Barracat right now, it's funny. Christina Rex gives Barracat a hard time. Barracat, the reason why he's not collecting money from people that work at the state is because he works for the state. It's just the whole thing. It's just what a snake. What a snake he is. He's sitting there going, "Oh, I'm ethical. I'm ethical. I quit the job. I quit the DA's office so I could shake down the employees for campaign donations. I'm ethical."
I've been concentrating on my cases. And then what wound up happening was after the Walsh case, I thought that my boss, my then boss, Michael Morrissey, was going to run for another term. And
When you say after the Walsh case, like after the conviction?
after the conviction.
Okay.
We never talked about it. But I just thought with his attitude and how happy he was that he was going to run for another term. And so it was about 2 weeks later he decided that he wasn't. And it was about a week after that of a lot of soul searching, talking to my family, talking to friends. I had an outpouring of support from the defense bar as well as other prosecutors and police and also families of victims. I decided to do it.
If DA Morrissey had run for another term, would you have challenged him?
No. So for the last 18 months of my career, we were really concentrating on trying to correct problems that had occurred in the office, as far as the overcharging I thought in the Karen Reed case, and evaluating cases in a more collaborative manner.
Does anyone believe this? That he was fixing. What did you fix, bro? Come on, bro. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm gonna skip ahead. I can't even stand this.
So if you could get through that gauntlet, we felt that you had the stamp of approval to charge a case.
Oh God.
You brought up the Karen Reed case, and
Yeah.
I think it's hard to ignore that case is probably the reason this field is so crowded.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah,
There are 7 candidates running right now.
there are, and one independent.
Okay, 7
Yes.
candidates running for the Democratic seat.
Yes.
That's a lot of people for district attorney's race.
Yes, it is. Yeah, in my lifetime, it's the most I've ever seen. And I've lived here, like I said, almost my entire life.
Right, and you've been in the office for 25 years.
Yes, and I was an intern before that, so I've had the opportunity to be with 3 different DAs, and so this is a different dynamic that I've ever seen.
So the question I want to ask, and I'm going to ask everybody this, is if you had been the DA in January of 2022,
Yes,
when Officer O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's front lawn in Canton,
yes.
would you have charged Karen Reed, and what would you have sought to charge her with?
So having not been in that grand jury, I can't tell you all of what was presented there. What I saw on the first trial, I would base my opinion on.
Okay.
So, because my understanding is that in that case, they got past motions to dismiss for lack of a probable cause. So, but when I watched the first trial, I saw them litigating whether or not the truck hit John, not why the truck hit John. And so, to me, they were never litigating a homicide case. They were litigating the potential of a negligent or reckless motor vehicle homicide. So that's what I think that should have been charged, and that's how I would have litigated it. And so I had concerns about the way it was charged when I was watching the trial.
So you would have sought to charge Karen Reed with negligent homicide or motor vehicle homicide?
Yeah, I think that that's really what the trial was coming down to. But by the way, when you look at the second trial, it's not guilty. Now that doesn't mean that it's necessarily that the Commonwealth didn't meet its burden, is what winds up happening. But I think that you have to listen to a jury in that and go, wow, there really wasn't evidence there for a homicide trial.
How do you think it would have turned out differently had
I would agree. My follow-up question is not how it would have turned out differently. It would have been, why was she overcharged? You mentioned earlier you were trying to deal with overcharging. Well, why are people being overcharged? That's the question. That is the question.
the goal charge been negligent homicide?
I don't know, because it's.
I know I'm asking you to look into a crystal ball.
Yeah, and it's also like I wasn't in the deliberations. I don't know what was important to the jurors. Here's my personal philosophy on charging cases, is I think if you overcharge a case as a prosecutor, you lose credibility with the jury. And when you do that, it could be somewhat cancerous to the rest of your case.
Okay.
And so I believe that you should be conservative with your charging and charge what you believe you can prove. And so what they were really litigating was whether or not that truck hit John. And so I think on the second trial, when I looked at Hank Brennan's closing argument, there was some compelling evidence for that argument of like, did the truck hit John? Did John not make it inside? So I think that the evidence was there to present that charge at trial. That all made sense. But I was never seeing the homicide charge.
And given that you were in the office, obviously this wasn't your case. But
Right.
what was the dynamic like? You know, you were trying other high-profile cases at the time. Whose call was it to go for the homicide charge? And what's it like to have worked in the office and not?
She's getting closer. This is what I like this
I
better.
think everyone's had a boss that they didn't agree with. Like, so that happens just in every in every workspace. And so it's frustrating. You have faith that the people that are working on it know more about the situation than you do, and you defer to them. So that case was being prosecuted by a lead prosecutor. He was answering to the first assistant, and the first assistant was answering to the district attorney. So that was kind of the chain of command on that. And that was traditionally how homicides were done. And like I said, in the last 18 months of my career, once that first assistant retired, we kind of took a more collective or collaborative approach on how to charge and how to try cases. And I found it to be very productive.
Why didn't you get that case? Because you try a lot of the big homicides.
That's a good question. I don't know.
So basically, if you really read between the lines there, it sounds like he's throwing it all at the first assistant before him. Right? Is that what he's doing there? I think that answers the question of why. Why was he overcharged? Why was she overcharged?
I'll tell you what I think happened was I had just finished trying Tammy Galloway.
Okay.
And that was the first homicide trial since COVID. And we were really getting up on our two legs after that point. We're trying trials with masks on, we're using new equipment, we're getting through all this. So I finished that. I remember the incident with John. And then I'm more focused on trying Emmanuel Lopes for murdering Michael Chesney and Vera Adams. So I'm deeply involved in that case at that point in time. And then, I'm still handling other cases as well that were coming in. So, why I didn't get it, I can't answer it. I know I was pretty busy at the time. And then what wound up happening was once I finished trying Emmanuel Lopes the second time, because we had a hung jury, I was asked to watch Karen Reed.
Okay.
And I did do that. I watched the first trial. What I had done was I had set up a schedule for our office where one of us would be able to watch it at any given day. And so I was there for probably about 50% of the time.
Okay.
And so I got to see in person about 50% of the trial. And then that was kind of my role, was just like if someone needed a bottle of water, go grab a bottle of water for them or whatnot like that, just to be somewhat supportive.
Okay. I have to point out the Emmanuel Lopes case. I was there for the conviction.
Yes.
That was also 2 trials in front of Judge Beverly Cannoni, the first one ending in a mistrial.
Yes.
So there's some similarities there.
Yeah, there were, weren't there? So, I think the Emmanuel Lopes case is a different scenario, though.
Right.
That was a mental health defense.
Right.
And my experience with mental health
Skip ahead of a little bit.
with the Chesney family after, the juror just wouldn't deliberate.
I mean, in that case, you only had 1 juror.
We both remember that.
Yes.
It was 4 hours of not being in court and just sweating it and thinking what's going to happen. Family, the sense of closure and completeness on the second one was amazing.
So it was worth it.
Now, Greg Conner got 31 minutes in this interview. Looks like he got the second longest
No matter
interview.
what the workplace is, that would affect any workspace. And so the support that they gave to the family and the support they also got from the that's okay. I mean,
They think that you're the inside guy in what they consider to be a corrupt office. What's your response to that, and how do you handle it?
Well, so the corrupt part I take great exception with. 2024, I was named the prosecutor of the year by the state. And by the way, Karen Reed was going on at that point in time. My reputation in the industry, I think, is excellent.
What is-
because other
I don't get this part, Greg. Why do you call prosecution an industry? Do all prosecutors call it an industry? I just think that's so weird. He calls it an industry. I'm respected in the. It reminds me of cannabis when people are like, I'm respected in the cannabis industry. I'm respected in the prosecution industry. I'm respected in the locking up people industry. I don't know. That just sounds so weird when he says that. He said that before in the previous forums. I thought he might stop, but I just think it's not good. You're not an industry titan, dude. You work for the freaking government. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Is it just me, people?
Prosecutors, the defense bar, and the police look to me as a leader. And so I've never had been accused of corruption. I believe that, I helped create our Brady List protocols. I helped create our conviction integrity unit. I did it with a retired judge who's now the vice chair of the Ethics Commission. So I went to people who were the gold standard in this, and they wanted to work with me to help create this stuff. So as far as people being critical of me, I mean, that's America. You have a right to have a voice. I think, though, there's an overwhelming support for me. And again, I didn't make this decision on my own. People asked me to do this.
Overwhelming?
Run.
Yes.
Tell me more about who asked you to run that really made you want to do it.
Chuck and Mimi Chesna.
Okay.
I was in their kitchen.
That's just for context for viewers. That's
Yeah.
Sergeant Chesna's
Yep.
parents.
Yep. Sergeant Chesna's parents. I was having lunch in their kitchen about a week beforehand. And, we were catching up. Mimi and I try and talk about every 6 months or so. And that was a big one. And that was one of the many people. There was a lot of police officers who reached out to me, and a lot of defense bar reached out to me.
See, that was a good answer. That right there, bro. Not the other stuff about the industry, but about the Chestnut family wanting you to run. If I were you, I'd be leading with that everywhere.
And
Because that's all you really have. Let's be clear.
So you walked me right into what's next, which is that the fallout from Michael Proctor's cases
Yes.
will fall in the hands of the next district attorney.
Yes.
There are many defense attorneys trying to get cases dismissed,
Oh, yeah.
overturned, you name it, because of his work on them.
Certainly.
How do you plan to handle that?
So we actually, before I left, we were already handling it. So just
Already handled. Oh, because of him. I'm going to skip over this.
There's this bigoted, horrific series of mess. And then when we wanted to give it to Post, the district attorney's office wanted to give it to Post and to Canton PD, we had to go back into court, get that protective order amended so that we could disseminate it to those other organizations.
Right.
So that's the ethical responsibility of the prosecution's office. And there's case law on that. You have to do this. And so, but we never received that directly from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We got it because of what was ordered in the Miles King case, where Michael Proctor turned over his phone. But the U.S. Attorney's Office got this in 2022. They still haven't turned it over.
Right. And that was under
What was
from a state case, the Miles King case.
Yes. And the way I have seen it, we have an affirmative responsibility to get it out there, and that's exactly is the right conviction. That's the nature of it. It's not. And then there was another case, it's still pending before I left, where he was on it for about 24 hours and didn't do anything.
Okay.
And so he was really a non-entity
Still.
in that second case.
I'm trying to get
Brian
ahead to
Walsh.
the donations part. There's a part about donations. That's what I want to get to.
When I was working with him, I was also working with Kansas, ready for Karen Reed and working on that case. So I was just shifting responsibilities to Cohasset PD.
Okay.
And he became less of a factor in my case. In fact, once he testified in 2024 and then he was suspended, I filed in writing I wouldn't call him as a witness to the court so that defense could. And they would know that they could summons him and find him if they wanted him. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew, I'm not going to call this guy.
You didn't want to rely on him anymore.
No, not at all. I mean, I don't need a bigot. I don't need a misogynist. I don't need that person on my trial team. And, if there was a case if there was an issue that I did, I would let people know, but yes, yeah.
So, again, for viewers who might watch this, he's the online social media blogger known as Turtle Boy.
Yep.
He's facing several counts of witness intimidation. And most likely, I think because of delays, he's going to go to trial under whoever's the next DA. What would your plan be?
Well, so right now, there is an independent prosecutor that's been hired by the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, retired Judge Cosgrove, that's prosecuting that case. And my understanding was he was hired because the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, not Michael Morrissey, not anyone else, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office was conflicted out, and that was determined by the BBO, the Board of Bar Overseers.
Okay, so that wasn't Michael Morrissey's call.
No, my understanding is that they went to the Board of Bar Overseers, got asked for an opinion. They said you're conflicted out, so you had to get another prosecutor. And so they eventually settled on retired Judge Cosgrove. And so, if elected, I would just defer to the independent prosecutor. I don't think that you can interfere with that at this point in time, where there's been a decision that it's not the district attorney, it's the office that's conflicted.
Retired Judge Cosgrove, I believe I noticed, let me check my notes to make sure, I believe he donated to your campaign.
Well, I worked with Judge Cosgrove for about 10 years before he became a judge. And he's an excellent judge. He's a very smart person. And in fact, he was the person I used to go to for advice when I was in the DA's office.
So your position would be, as DA, you basically wouldn't put your hands in that case. You would leave it up to him.
I would.
See, I like that little. She did I got to give Christina Rex this. She did do her research about the donations. If you listen to all these interviews, she knows who's getting the money from who. I just wish she hammered on it more. Like you did the research. You she just threw that little needle in there, which was perfect. Like, I just wish she had followed up on it. Because she said it, like, you took a contribution from Robert Cosgrove. Are you conflicted there? I mean, she should have just driven it home a little more. But I like she brought it up. I like she did the research. I like she knows the details. I like that she did this. I just wish she made the money a bigger issue, because she clearly did her research about it.
Leave it to the independent prosecutor.
Okay.
Specifically because the BBO has said that there's a conflict. And so, I don't know if I can overcome what the Board of Bar Overseers has said.
Speaking of campaign contributions, I looked at yours,
Oh.
and you have raised the second most money in this race,
Oh,
I
okay.
believe.
All right.
And a large percentage of your donors are people from Massachusetts,
Okay.
people from Norfolk County,
Okay.
and a lot of lawyers. You mentioned
Who will have business before you, bro, and they know the way the game is played with the Morrissey regime. Pay to play, bro. Pay to play. She brought all of that up. I wish she just drove it home a little more. She did her research. You have to give her props. I just think that she's not used to doing these types of interviews, especially in person. So I think that's the. I don't think this was intentional. I think if she had it back, she would have been a little stronger on this too. But she did ask the question. But I just wish she was a little more pointed on it.
you had been contacted by, I noticed a lot of prominent defense attorneys on that list as well. Kevin Reddington was on there as having donated to you.
Yep.
What do you think that says about your campaign and the kind of DA you would be?
Well, I think it says, one, that the people from this county and from this state believe in me. And that's incredibly touching. Two, to have the defense bar support me means an awful lot, because I'll tell you, I got an opportunity to knock on doors in Needham with a retired public defender. And she and I were going on doors. And I never thought a public defender and a district attorney would be knocking on doors together. And she's like, this is the person you got to vote for. Ethical person. This is the person you want. Now imagine that. A public defender who has spent her entire career fighting with me is out there with me, shoulder to shoulder, asking people to vote for me. And so that means an awful lot. When you have the defense bar and you have people from this area saying that this is the person that they want as their next district attorney, it makes you get out there and work just as hard.
Really, because some of us would think it comes with the appearance that there's pay to play going on. That all of these lawyers that have business before you are making campaign donations to you because they expect something back later, bro. I mean, that's what all of us regular citizens that don't know any better, that's what we think. I wish she had followed up and said that to him. Said, what about the appearance of these donations from these lawyers that are going to have business before your DA's office, that they're going to get something back for these donations? What about that? She didn't ask it. She was nibbling. You could see, if people are aware, they know what she's talking about. But the average citizen watching this has no idea how this game works. I wish she had just drilled down on it a little more.
If not harder than you could.
What would your staffing plan be? I know there's a lot of conversations when someone takes over as DA. Are they going to clean house? Are they going to keep the people?
Then she goes to staffing. Like, no one gives a shit about the staffing. We want to know about the pay to play in this office and the appearance of it. I think it was a missed opportunity. She did all that research. She knew he was getting all the donations from the Kevin Reddingtons of the world, and she let it go. She let it go. I think she's nervous, honestly, because I mean, you could see, I think she's nervous because I get nervous during these things, and I can see it. I think she's like me. I think it sucks because she did do a lot. I felt like she did a lot of good research. She looked at the campaign donations. Let's look at Daesh. Watch Daesh for a little
Thank
bit.
you for joining us.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Christina.
it.
It's great to be here.
I'll give you the same starter question I gave everybody, which is also probably the easiest. Introduce yourself and tell us why you're running.
Of course. I'm Adam Deitch, and until November, I was a federal prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. I was doing mostly public corruption cases around Massachusetts, but ultimately had a series of cases taking place in Norfolk County. And it got to a point where I was looking at case after case, and I literally said out loud, what on earth is going on in Norfolk County? So I launched this campaign, and I'm running now full-time because I believe what this DA's office needs is wholesale, cultural, systemic change, the kind of change that can only come from a change in leadership, ideally an outside perspective, somebody who has experience prosecuting police misconduct cases and public corruption cases.
Why would you leave a federal job to try and be a county district attorney?
Yeah, so I think, for the longest time, being a federal prosecutor was my dream job. And when I got a job in the Boston U.S. Attorney's Office, one of the most elite prosecutors' offices in the entire country, I was beyond excited. Coming back to New England, where I grew up, and I loved every minute of that job. But literally, I started working on cases in Norfolk County and saw things happening that made me realize this district attorney's office is broken, and I am uniquely situated to solve those problems.
Okay, I've asked everybody this as well, and since you're talking about how you feel like an outsider needs to come in, what would your plan be if you were elected to this position, as far as staffing goes? There are people who've worked there for decades. Would you be cleaning house? Would you be making people reapply to their jobs? What would your plan be?
It's a great question, and I think, first of all, the next DA is going to have to demonstrate a level of firm, thoughtful, decisive leadership. I think, number one, there are a lot of things this DA's office does well, and there are people who are career public servants who go into work every day, they work hard, they do the right thing. I want to embrace and strengthen the things the DA's office does right. But I think what's happened over the past few years is that it's not just me, and I'm sure it's not just you, a lot of people have seen how broken aspects of what this DA's office does has become. And so we're going to need to make real changes, and nothing will happen overnight, by the way, but we're going to have to be firm and decisive about what is broken and how to fix it, and bringing in new blood and new people to handle some of those tasks. It's not just the DA's office and the prosecutors and the legal staff. It's also the state police detective unit that is housed at the DA's office. Right. They report up to the DA, and they lead investigations of unattended deaths throughout Norfolk County, including, of course, in the death of John O'Keefe and the death of Sandra Birchmore as two very high-profile examples.
But your plan is not to come in and fire everyone.
No, and I know there's a candidate in the race who has said that everyone in the office is going to need to reapply for their jobs. Mm-hmm. That is not my message at all.
Okay.
And I think I want to meet people where they are. I want to be thoughtful about the leadership of the office, and I want to make sure that I get to know people who are there before making some of the more significant personnel changes that ultimately will need to be made. I'll also say this: it won't just be me. I intend to bring in a team to help me lead the office, to balance out my federal criminal experience with state criminal experience. And the key aspect there is I will bring people who've been supervisors in other DA's offices, for example, who share my values and share my positive vision for the future of the Norfolk County DA's office.
So we're going to get into the specific cases that have kind of plagued this county lately. But first, I want to ask you about DA Michael Morrissey in particular. He's been the DA for 16 years. He's not running for re-election. Obviously, all of you are running to replace him. What's your position on him right now, and in particular, how he's handled the public pressure the last few years?
Yeah, I'll go backwards. Just a few weeks ago, when a trooper who's in that state police detective unit, Michael Proctor, when his text messages became public, mm-hmm. I immediately, that day, I think on your air, called for Michael Morrissey to resign his position immediately. It shows a utter lack of supervision of that state police detective unit, and it's just another horrifying illustration of some of the cultural problems that have been allowed to fester in the DA's office. This is one trooper whose text messages the public has now seen, and they are the most horrifying, racist, bigoted, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, homophobic text messages that I think anybody has ever seen. And it demonstrates a failure of leadership. Anyone who's in that line of supervision should be held responsible for what's been going on. I was one of the candidates in this race who started my campaign before Michael Morrissey decided not to run.
Right.
And in fact, I launched in November, and it was a few months before DA Morrissey decided to get out. Now, I'm not saying there's a causal relationship between my campaign and Michael Morrissey deciding not to run, but I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm kidding a little bit. But I think the reality is it is time for change in Norfolk County, and maybe DA Morrissey realized that as well.
Okay. Let's talk about Proctor a little bit. I'm going to kind of go reverse order with you than I have with others. Michael Proctor's text messages. I'm going to start in the past, and then I'm going to talk about the future. His text messages were, federal investigators were made aware of them first, you likely being one of them because you're working in the office at the time. Then they became public knowledge during a state trial in 2024. Then even more text messages were revealed, public knowledge, honestly, a month ago and then just last week. They seem to keep coming out. At the same time, the point at which Trooper Proctor was placed on leave from state police was right after the first mistrial. Karen Reed's first trial ended in a mistrial. If you had been the DA at that time, with all that timing of those texts coming out, what would you have done differently, or would you have done something differently?
Yeah, first of all, and it applies to the Karen Reed case, it applies to the Sandra Birchmore case, it applies to any other case in Norfolk County. As district attorney, I will follow the facts and the evidence no matter where they lead or who they implicate. And it also means finishing an investigation before deciding whether to charge and what to charge. And so I think those two cases demonstrate something that's been happening in Norfolk County for years. I've been calling it a two-tiered system of justice, where if you know the right people or if you're connected to certain members of law enforcement, you've been able to get special treatment in Norfolk County. So number one, I would finish the investigation into the death of police officer John O'Keefe before deciding whether to charge someone and then what to charge. In addition, the charges would match the evidence. That would be a difference as well. You asked specifically about Proctor's.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about what you would have charged if you had been in charge for the Karen Reed case, but specifically Proctor, what would you have done differently?
Sure, I think, and there are a lot of things about the U.S. Attorney's Office and federal practice, the best practices of the Justice Department, especially here in Massachusetts, that I think have great applications in a DA's office like Norfolk County. And I think there are ways that we as federal prosecutors are required to vet the members of law enforcement who are working our cases that clearly failed in the case of Michael Proctor. And it includes asking questions of members of law enforcement, have you texted about this defendant or this case at all? And if the answer is yes, as a prosecutor, I'm responsible to look at those texts and determine during discovery, certainly way before a trial, whether those text messages need to be disclosed.
That's part of the vetting process at the federal level?
Yes, in every case.
Okay, and you would bring that to a state case?
That and so much more. I think, it goes way before you get to a point where an investigator is investigating a case. I want to bring in the very best members of the state police into the state police detective unit in Norfolk County. The DA does have a say in which investigators are assigned to that unit, and I think it should be the most elite unit in the state police. You're tasked with investigating some of the most horrific crimes in the county, and I think there are a lot of troopers who strive to work in that role. Here, obviously, and I think that's why I call the problem a cultural one, troopers who are not the best of the best have landed in this unit. And I think there have been changes made in the past year or so, but I truly want the best of the best investigators. I want the best of the best prosecutors. And I was the first candidate in this race to unveil a comprehensive policy agenda for the future of the DA's office. One key tenet of that agenda, I want to recruit, train, and retain the best prosecutors in Massachusetts. And I think where over the past few years we've seen an office that has become down on its luck. I see a great opportunity. I think we can be a beacon in Norfolk County for the very best prosecutors, for the best members of a legal staff, for the best investigators in the state police. And if I can just say one more thing.
Yep, go ahead.
A lot of talk, especially over the last few weeks, given these texts,
Yeah.
have called into question the state police. And over the past few years, the public has seen this drumbeat of cases involving the state police, not just in Norfolk County. I know that because I've investigated and prosecuted members of the state police for overtime fraud and for bribery. But I think despite all of that, the reality is I've worked with tremendous members of law enforcement, including in the state police, and it is a minority of troopers who are giving the entire state police a bad name. I want some of the best of the balance of those troopers to come work for us in Norfolk County.
So the message is not that the whole state police department is corrupt.
It is not that. I can see why people think that, because it feels like there's a new case or a new incident or a new revelation every other week. But I think a lot of these date back historically. I'm optimistic about the future of the state police, and I want to play a role in helping improve not just the state police detective unit in Norfolk County, but hopefully providing insight and some of the benefits of my experience as a federal prosecutor, because I do think we can strive for something better.
Okay, the future of Proctor. These cases that he's touched in Norfolk County, I mean, some of them are still ongoing. Others, there are convictions that some lawyers are going to, seek to overturn because of his involvement in them. What is your plan for the future of those cases as they unravel?
Yeah, this is one of the many reasons why I think I'm completely uniquely situated in this race to be the next.
Adam Deich got the longest interview out of all of them, too. 43 minutes, this one is.
District attorney. I'm the only candidate who's ever been a federal prosecutor. I'm the only candidate who specializes in public corruption cases. I'm the only candidate who's made his career as a prosecutor investigating police misconduct, including at the state police. And I think these text messages call into question a lot more.
No, I think his mic is just moves around a little bit. He's got a lapel on right there, under right next to his pin. I think maybe it was tilted. So it depends on where he's speaking. It's getting better.
The Karen Reed case and the Miles King case and the other cases in which filings have been made where these text messages have been disclosed. For anybody who's read the texts, you have to admit that there's no way Michael Proctor was treating fairly any person he was investigating who's in any of the groups he texted about. If you are a black defendant in Norfolk County and your investigation was led by Michael Proctor, that case needs to be reevaluated by the next district attorney or sooner. And one of the reasons why I called for Michael Morrissey to resign is because January is not soon enough. We need fresh eyes on these cases ASAP. And the unfortunate reality here is Trooper Proctor was tasked with some of the most important investigations over the past few years in Norfolk County, and some of those convictions, unfortunately, are going to be called into question because of how racist, how bigoted, how misogynistic he is.
And what about for Michael Proctor himself? He's been fired, he's been publicly shamed and continues to be so as more text messages are revealed. Do you think that more accountability or more punishment is warranted for him?
So we want the same accountability that we treat our defendants with applied to members of law enforcement and people who work in the office. I talk about accountability a lot on the campaign trail. And in fact, my comprehensive policy agenda is it's called the accountability agenda or Adam's accountability agenda. But it's accountability in three parts. Number one, it is holding criminals accountable. The number one job of a DA's office is, of course, public safety. But it's also holding ourselves accountable to the public, being transparent and open and using data to track progress over time.
I mean, this has been my question. I'm glad she asked that accountability question about Proctor, because you're starting to see other police officers, state police, being investigated criminally and charged for other cover-ups. What about Proctor? Is he ever going to face any criminal charges?
And communicate about that with the public. And then last, it's accountability to survivors and victims and their family members. And it means that survivors, victims, and family members need to be at the center of everything the DA does. Everything the DA's office does needs to be a survivor-centered focus.
I'm going to ask you one more time if you
Yeah.
think more punishment for Proctor is warranted. Do you think he's
So-
committed crimes here?
So I don't know. And I think
Okay.
my number one priority when I get into office is going to be looking at any case where survivors, victims, and their family members have not gotten justice.
Okay.
Or where those cases have been called into question.
She followed
And
up on that one.
includes any case that Michael Proctor worked on. It includes any case that any other trooper who has text messages like that and harbors biases like that worked on. And I think we need to ensure that anybody who was communicating like that, who harbored bias and whose bias affected investigations, every single trooper in that category needs to be held accountable. And so what you're asking me whether more punishment or whether it is necessary or whether a crime was committed. I don't think I have enough information yet to know the answer to that, but if so, then we're going to pursue those charges.
Okay. I do want to talk about the Karen Reed case. That's the reason you got into this race. It's the reason this race is so crowded, frankly.
Certainly part of the reason I got into the race.
Yeah. I've asked everybody this question, so I'll ask you now. If you had been the DA in January of 2022 when Officer O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's front lawn in Canton, would you have sought to charge Karen Reed, and what charges would you have sought?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that question only based on information that has become public. It's
Right,
been-
and I should point out that you know more than the public does, so let's go based on public information.
Yeah, and just to step back, it's
Yeah.
been publicly reported that I was the lead assistant U.S. attorney in the federal investigation into the death of John O'Keefe and the ensuing.
Stop it there. Vetta is at the World Cup game in Seattle right now. What game? Is that USA? I don't even know. I haven't watched any of those games. I've seen some highlights. It looks pretty good. Maybe I should watch it tonight. What game? Which one? Is it happening still? Am I going to get to see Eddie Vedder on TV? What channel? I don't even know where to watch this stuff. Let me know. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the super chat and the heads up on Eddie Vedder. USA versus Belgium. Oh, he must be for the home team, USA. Wow. Is he singing the national anthem or anything, or is he just hanging out? Is he with his wife? Is he with his kids? Who's he hanging out with? Mike McCready there? I'm wondering, is he solo? It's on Fox. All right, I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Sarah. Do I still have time? I probably have like another hour here. Will the game still be going on? Let me know. All right, let's get back to this so I can go watch the World Cup.
Investigation and prosecution of Karen Reed. And because of Justice Department
he's with his
policy,
daughter. Of course he
can't
is.
talk about anything that
Love it.
is still a part of that investigation that hasn't been made public. What I can say, though, is this. That
figured.
case, to be sure, brought to light deficiencies in this DA's office that are part of the reason why I'm running. And part of the reason the public is so angry about what's been going on in this DA's office. You asked, what would I have charged on January 29th, 2022? Well, first of all, I wouldn't have drawn any conclusions on January 29th, 2022. I would have ensured that investigative
got
steps
time.
were taken. You and I are not trained investigators, unless, Christina, you are.
I'm not.
That's it.
No.
But there are things that you and I would have done when John O'Keefe's body was found that were never done by the state police. You and I would have secured the crime scene. You and I would have asked to search the house. You and I would have we would have conducted interviews of people who were in the house. And so number one, I would have completed an investigation before charging anyone with anything. And I think, I can't comment on specific aspects of the evidence, but I think at the end of the day, the jury got it right based on the evidence that was presented at trial, and you know more than most because you were there.
Every day.
But there were witnesses in the trial who I found very credible. Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler, who were working for an entity called ARCA,
Who had been hired by the feds
who it was reported were
initially.
hired by the federal government as part of its investigation. They are PhDs whose opinions are unassailable. And they concluded, as you know and as many folks know, that the taillight could not have broken on John O'Keefe's body. And I think that's pretty telling when you compare that evidence to the similar evidence presented by the state with Trooper Paul at the first trial and the blue paint expert at the second trial, who, by the way, cost taxpayers $400,000.
Adam nailed it. Sounds like Betterow right there. This interview too, we're going to hear something that we haven't heard anywhere else before with Adam, which I was shocked. about his relationship with Karen Reed. I was surprised. You're going to hear some things. I don't know if people have listened to this yet, but this interview gets pretty good, actually. There's a lot of information that I didn't know about.
I'm going to ask you again because
Sure.
I've tried to pin
No,
everyone down
please.
on this, which is knowing what the public knows, I'll say, not knowing what you know. Do you think Karen Reed was the person to charge in that case?
For driving while intoxicated, yes.
For the death of John O'Keefe?
I think the evidence, I think the jury got it right.
Okay. Do you believe that that case at the state
And sorry,
level?
by the way,
Keep going.
we would have saved more than $400,000 if she had been charged with driving while
why?
intoxicated. She would have, it's not just $400,000, it was $566,000 of taxpayer money to hire an outside prosecutor to try the second case, to do a job that we.
You imagine if Karen Reed had just been charged with OUI? She probably would have done what a lot of us. I was once charged with OUI when I was age 19. Guess you know what I did? I took a plea immediately. Took a plea. You know? That's what most people do. Especially when you know they have a test against you. You know? You just take the plea. I bet there wouldn't even been a trial.
all assumed the DA's office should be doing in the first place. It's the cost of all of the other ADAs and legal staff at the DA's office. It's the cost of the court time and court staff and police details to provide security at the courthouse. It's the busing of the
Millions.
jurors to the courthouse every day.
They spent millions on
It's
this.
probably more than $2 million of taxpayer money to try a case that DA Morrissey appears to have been obsessed with.
That's your belief of why he kind of dug his heels in and did that retrial and whatnot?
In the end, I don't think I have said this to a reporter, but I talk about this when I'm asked, when was the first time it occurred to you to run? And the first moment it occurred to me, I was paying a lot of attention, obviously, to what was going on,
Right.
especially during the first trial. And the first jury came back hung, and the judge declared a mistrial. And it felt like 30 minutes went by before District Attorney Morrissey put out a statement saying, we are proceeding with the same 3 charges and retrying the case again.
It was within hours, I can confirm, because I was there.
It was pretty
Felt
immediate.
I was
instantaneous
still
to me.
on the courthouse steps
Pretty immediate.
when that statement came through, which means that it was within hours of the mistrial happening.
So at that point, through the first trial, given the evidence that came in and the way the case was presented by the DA's office, the office and the attention, national attention, the office had become a national embarrassment. And so for that statement to come out moments after, effectively, the jury comes back hung, made me realize they don't even know there's a problem here. Not only could they not prove their case, not only were they embarrassed on national television, but they don't even realize it. And that's when I thought to myself, maybe I should do something about this. I thought, I have seen things that nobody else has seen. I am uniquely situated as a public corruption prosecutor. It did occur to me that I'm not married and don't have kids, and so I
Okay.
have the flexibility to leave my job, and I sold my place in Boston. I moved to Quincy to do this. Not everyone has the ability
So you moved
do
to Norfolk
that.
County just to do
Yes.
this, because there's a residency requirement for anybody who doesn't
to
know
take
that.
office.
I just want to say one thing. She does ask the questions about Turtle Boy, which I like. I think she should be asking those questions. I would like to see a follow-up question on Turtle Boy for anyone that asks that question going forward to these candidates, and especially considering the fact that the question always comes up: do you think it was a good idea for Morrissey to retry Karen Reed? I think the question should be: if Robert Cosgrove gets a hung jury on Turtle Boy, which is a high likelihood, would you retry it? Would you retry Turtle Boy if it's a hung jury the first time? That's another question that I feel like nobody is asking these candidates, and it should be asked.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think, the reality is I was living in Boston, working at the U.S. Attorney's Office, loved my job, but saw what was going on here and realized somebody needs to do something about it. And I happen to be uniquely qualified in this moment, given everything that's happened. We're all in the greater Boston area. Norfolk County is a county of 750,000 people who effectively live right outside of Boston, who I consider my neighbors. And so I took the measures I needed to take to launch a campaign that's built to win, and that's why I'm doing this.
If you are elected to this position, do you think that there's more investigation at the state level warranted into the death of John O'Keefe?
So I think any case, including the death of John O'Keefe, where survivors, victims, and their family members do not have justice, and I think of the Sandra Birchmore case.
We're going to get to that next.
Literally every day. Any case where victims and their families don't have justice needs to be reevaluated, and when investigations haven't been completed, they need to be completed.
So I think,
I'm laughing at Sarah's comments in the chat. I'm not even addressing them, but I did send you a private message because I couldn't put it in the chat. Check your DMs.
and frankly, I don't know this because DA Morrissey has not answered requests for comment or interviews, but I believe he would probably say this investigation is completed.
I agree with you,
They believe they
Ruthie.
have the right person. So you would say it's not.
I think there are
I agree with what Ruthie said. I say no. If Turtle Boy has a hung jury, then I think they should drop the charges. And I dislike the crybaby. Me too. I think you're right. You know? You know I'm right. I think you know I'm right. Not going to say anything else. We're not going to comment on that stuff publicly.
investigative steps that were never taken by the DA's office or the state police. And I think, in addition, the DA's office jumped to a conclusion, and they've been beating that drum ever since. And I think, I think a lot about the O'Keefe family, who's been told the DA's party line ever since their loved one's body was found.
What do you mean by that?
I think that this case involved a rush to judgment. It involved shortcuts. It involved drawing conclusions about what happened before even collecting all the evidence. And I think the district attorney's office, in particular DA Morrissey, has wedded himself to that conclusion at the cost of his credibility, at the cost of the credibility of his office. And that's what he's been telling the O'Keefe family ever since. And I think there needs to be, in every case, an honest dialogue with survivors, victims, and their families about the evidence, about what happened, and setting realistic expectations for what justice can look like.
Have you ever spoken with the O'Keefe family?
So I've exchanged emails with Paul O'Keefe, who's John O'Keefe's brother. And we haven't met in person, but we've exchanged emails.
Do you anticipate you would meet with him?
I told him I would, absolutely. And I hope that certainly as DA, I think one thing that we can do differently is shine a light on the actual evidence in the case. And my hope is to have an ongoing dialogue, not just with the O'Keefe family, but with families of victims in other cases. I think I've become a repository for people who haven't gotten justice in Norfolk County. And I guess we'll get to the Sandra Birchmore case, but I'll preview. A few months ago, members of Sandra Birchmore's family endorsed me in this race, which is the most humbling thing that's happened in this race. It's the biggest honor of this race for me. And they're an example of a family that has been wronged by the DA's office. And it's sort of on another planet compared to the Karen Reed case, because you have another investigation that was never completed by the state police detective unit, by the supervisors who were working with them at the DA's office. And the themes are remarkably similar. You've got a rush to judgment, you've got shortcuts taken, you've got a conclusion drawn before the evidence is collected. And in both cases, the U.S. Attorney's Office felt compelled to step in, and in that case, actually charge someone with Sandra Birchmore's murder.
Right.
Because the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI actually looked at the evidence in the case and completed an investigation and realized it's a murder, not a suicide.
We'll do Sandra Birchmore. We'll talk about her case now. now, and then I'll get back to a couple other
Sure.
questions I have on Karen Reed. But in the Sandra Birchmore case, kind of the narrative that I've been informed of is that the medical examiner at the state level deemed it a suicide, and investigators in the DA's office, that's kind of where the investigation stopped. It's a suicide, therefore there's no one to charge.
You didn't
What
want to
was
hear
the
what I
number
was
from
saying
the
anyways,
judge?
trust me.
So first of all, I would have completed the investigation.
You're saying it shouldn't have stopped there.
Absolutely.
I think God was looking out for me on that one, that I was muted. Now I think about it. For once, God was looking out for me with the mute. Usually when I'm muted, it's like I said something I wanted to share, and I'm never as good the second time. But this time, yeah, you didn't want to hear that. I'm glad I was muted on that one. Thank you, God. You covered me on that one.
And in fact, I'll get into a little bit more detail here, but
I don't think I'm eating dinner
number
tonight.
one,
I'm not
the
feeling too well,
investigative
actually.
steps that the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office.
I think I ate too much crap for the 4th of July. I have not been feeling well, my stomach. So I don't even know if I'm eating dinner tonight, Ruthie, truthfully. Ah, goddamn. I had some peaches today. That's what I ate. Peaches. Trying to make my stomach feel better.
all could and should have been taken at the state level. And I think
I'm having a lot of problems today, health wise, I guess. I cracked a tooth while I was live today. A filling. Lost a filling. I don't feel like eating dinner tonight. I don't know.
paying attention know this. But
This
a
is
lot of
old
people
age.
don't realize about the back and forth that happens between investigators and medical examiners before a medical examiner makes a determination, because it's up to the investigators to communicate the circumstances, to communicate about some of the evidence.
Give context, right?
To give context for what happened. And I think, the implication that a member of law enforcement could have been involved in causing Sandra Birchmore's death, and relationships and conflicts between members of law enforcement, meant that the two-tiered system of Michael Morrissey kicked in again. And so we have special treatment for Matthew Farwell, a determination of suicide, an incomplete investigation, and now a reliance on the feds to step in and do what the DA's office never did.
Oh, I'm not feeling backed up. I'm feeling the other way. It all came out. That's all I'll say. We need to stop.
And I'll go a step further. We have the public has seen credible accusations of what happened to Sandra before she was murdered. And it doesn't just stop with Matthew Farwell. And you know better than most, and because of the strength and fortitude of Sandra's family, who've been beating the drum on this for years, and the reporting of people like you and Laura Cromaldi at the Globe, the story has gotten the light of day, thank goodness. But she became a member of a police explorers program when she was in her teens, certainly years before she was 18. And there are these allegations that she was groomed and abused for years before she was ultimately murdered. Those are state crimes too. And so as DA, and certainly in consultation with the members of Sandra Birchmore's family, the family members of a victim of a murder, or it's an alleged murder, so I want to be careful with that, but certainly that's what the evidence shows. If there were other crimes committed, they need to be investigated. They need to be prosecuted, and we shouldn't be waiting for the U.S. Attorney's Office to step in every time a serious crime is committed in Norfolk County.
Do you mean by the other officers involved with Sandra Birchmore?
If they did what they're alleged to have done, those are state crimes that need to be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
And then what about any state crimes, including murder, that Matthew Farwell might have committed? Is it worth moving forward on state charges at this point, now that the feds have taken this case?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a question I get asked a lot. And I sometimes get bogged down in the nerdy details of the law here, but the federal case against Matthew Farwell is much more complicated than the state murder case would be.
Right, because isn't it like murder of a witness?
It's a version of an obstruction of justice statute federally, where you don't have to prove just that he killed her and that he intended to. You have to prove that the reason was to conceal evidence or testimony relating to a different crime. Whereas the murder case in the state is, did he kill her? Did he intend to? And it's a much more straightforward case. I think I don't know that I would trust this DA's office to complete that investigation and prosecute that case under its current leadership. But in the end, that's a case that could and should be brought as well. Obviously, if he's convicted of murder federally, we don't want to duplicate resources.
Right.
But there are other aspects of that investigation that need to be completed. I'll go a step farther, because the Karen Reed case got all kinds of attention, and the Sandra Birchmore case, because of her family and the reporting, got all kinds of attention. But those two cases raise what I think is actually the most terrifying question, which is because most defendants, most victims don't get the kind of attention that these two cases got. It raises the question, what else has been going on in Norfolk County that we don't even know about?
And
Facts.
you're saying you don't know either, but you assume that maybe this is the tip of the iceberg?
I mean, these are the two cases that we know about, and what we see are nationally embarrassing deficiencies in the DA's office. The only logical conclusion is that there are going to, when we start looking under the hood, we're going to find other problems.
And
I got a call 2 weeks ago, or had a call with a woman who lives in Norfolk County, whose young daughter was found dead about 1.5 years ago, and she still doesn't have answers for that case. We get emails regularly, because I am this repository for people who have felt injustice from their DA's office, which is something no one should ever feel. And any case where there are serious questions needs to be looked at, needs to be reevaluated.
And it seems like you think that the buck stops at Michael Morrissey.
The buck stops with the DA. It'll certainly stop with me when I am district attorney. And for the past 16 years, the buck has stopped, short of or at Michael Morrissey.
I want to move on to one other future case before I circle back, which is Aiden Carney, aka Turtle Boy, is facing a number of witness intimidation charges in Norfolk County. There's a special prosecutor who's trying his case, and it's scheduled to go to trial right around the same time that a new DA would be taking over. Have you had conversations about that case? Have you thought about that case, and what would your approach be?
I think I'm not going to comment on specific pending cases, but I will say that I call into question the decision-making of this DA's office based on everything I've seen in cases that I've either investigated or looked at, and I think we need a fresh set of eyes on anything that this DA's office is doing. I'll also say the use of special prosecutors has gotten completely out of hand. We have an office that has a limited budget, most of which goes to salary, and we need to be handling cases with competence and trust and professionalism inside the DA's office. I get asked a lot about corruption in Norfolk County and police misconduct in Norfolk County. And one aspect of my policy agenda is establishing a first-of-its-kind anti-corruption task force in Norfolk County, where we dedicate a senior assistant district attorney and one or more investigators to fielding complaints about public corruption and police misconduct, isolating those people so there isn't a conflict with their other cases, and handling those cases in the professional way we've come to expect from the U.S. Attorney's Office, for example. I think we can do that kind of work. I think we can do it without as many special prosecutors, and I look forward to doing that.
So I'm taking that you would look at the case with a fresh set of eyes. Is that fair?
I would look at every case that we're doing with a fresh set of eyes, including that one.
Have you made any promises or suggestions about what would happen to that case if you were to take
No,
over?
absolutely not.
Okay.
And I'm trying not to comment on specific cases until I get in there and read every page of every file.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about your campaign contributions, because you are certainly someone who has raised a lot of money compared to other candidates. And there's, for our viewers who might not know this.
Thank you for noticing.
Yes, I did. I did some research. For our viewers who might not know this, there's limits on what people can donate, right? I believe it's $1,000 per person per calendar year.
Exactly.
That being said, you have maxed out that rule, $1,000 per person per calendar year, from Alan Jackson, Karen Reed's lawyer, Karen Reed herself, Karen Reed's father, Bill Reed, who even when I interviewed him recently in our interview mentioned you and encouraged people in Norfolk County to vote for you. David Yannetti as well, Karen Reed's lawyer. I believe David Yannetti's wife as well was on the list. These are people who have endorsed you. And while none of them live in Norfolk County, they're maybe the most, famous current defense team in Norfolk County. What do you think it says about your campaign that to have them behind you? And also, what is your relationship with them?
Yeah, so I guess first of all, I'll say that I'm so excited and proud. We have the greatest amount of money raised from individual donors. We have now the largest number of individual donors of any candidate in this race. And it takes a lot of work. That part of the campaign is not fun. I'm proud to have support from hundreds of people in Norfolk County and Massachusetts. And my network includes people who are out of state. I think
I should point out here, because it was going to be my next question, but you're talking about it. More than half of the money you've received is from people whose addresses are listed out of state on the campaign contribution site.
I know that more than half of my donors are here in Massachusetts, for sure.
The people, yes.
And we're in fact on pace to be first or second in the race by September 1st in terms of total dollars raised and total individual donors in Massachusetts. In addition to that, we have a ton of support around the country, and I think it falls into two buckets. One, I lived in New York before. I have close friends across the country. The people who know me best believe that I will be great at this job. And then second, I think it shows the national level of the deficiencies and the problems in this DA's office. There are people across the country who are paying attention to the Norfolk County DA's office, and they believe that I am the best person to solve these problems. You asked specifically about Karen Reed and her family and her defense team. I think I know I'm proud to have the support of the people who care most about change in the DA's office. And I have contributions from friends and family members of Sandra Birchmore. The people who've been affected most by some of the deficiencies in this office have endorsed me, are supporting me, and I'm proud to have their support. You asked about my relationship with Karen Reed.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of you two together seemingly on the campaign trail.
So 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we hosted a kickoff for our campaign office in Quincy, and I didn't know she was coming. Karen Reed came. That was the first time that I met Karen Reed. That's the first time I ever spoke with Karen Reed. But I am so proud to have her support and her dad's support and her family's support and David's support, because I think they've...
All right, I'm going to stop right there. I'm just going to, I just looked up to see how many donations Adam Deich has from Massachusetts. I'm not able to drill down by district easily. It's much harder to do, but I can do an easy search on OCPF to see how many donations he has from the state of Massachusetts. It looks like his donations have increased. He's got 469 donations from Mass residents, which seems like an increase. But if you compare to Juna Perkins, for instance, she has 673 donations from Massachusetts. So she's leading him by almost 300 donors from the state of Mass. So she's still leading him. He has raised a significant amount of money, especially out of state. His in-state donors are definitely increasing, so he's doing better. But he's still behind, say, like Juna Perkins for number of contributions in the state, almost 2-1, actually. All right. We'll play a little more of this, and then we're going to check out Juna Perkins, too.
You know, had a front row seat like you to some of the things that have been going on in this DA's office. And I'm thrilled that they are excited enough about my candidacy to get behind it with their support.
Do you think that the campaign contributions that you have, including those out of state, will transition into votes? You know, what do you think it says about the fact that you have either out of state or out of county contributions in terms of what it'll mean for you getting elected?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm most proud of the contributions and the tens of thousands of dollars we are raising on a quarterly basis from people in Massachusetts and from people in Norfolk County. The amount of support we have in the county and the momentum that we're building is really gratifying, and it makes me excited about what's going to happen on September 1st. But second, I think what it says is that we're building a campaign that's going to win. We're building an infrastructure with paid staff and a strategy that is going to communicate with voters about our positive vision for the future of the DA's office. I think the reality, it's a huge county. The county is the size of a congressional district. And so in order to communicate with the voters who are going to decide this election, you need money, you need resources, you need infrastructure. And it's not I said this before, it's not the fun part of the campaign, but the reality is we're taking this very seriously. I did not leave my job, sell my place in Boston, move to Quincy to run and lose. I'm in it to win it and to be the next DA, to bring competence and trust and fairness back to this DA's office. And part of that is building a campaign that has the infrastructure to win.
I promise this is my last Karen Reed question, but you know, you have, for better for worse, you are this quote unquote Karen Reed candidate, right? She's endorsed you, her family has endorsed you, and at the same time you've received criticism for your perceived relationship with them. You just said that was the first time you'd ever met Karen Reed or ever spoken to her. Can you just clarify what?
Actually, I sent a thank you note to her and her family members after they contributed in 2025.
Okay.
So, but it was the first time that I met or spoke with her.
Can you clarify your relationship just?
It's interesting right here. This is brand new, and I'm glad she drilled down on this. This was good. Good job on this one, Rex. This is a good follow-up because nobody has ever heard about Deitch and Karen Reed's relationship. We just see this picture of them at the campaign headquarters. We see her donating to his campaign. I know that Karen supports Adam. I know that she wanted me to talk about it with Bill Reed that night when we had him on the fundraiser. Fortunately, it didn't work out. But we don't know anything else really beyond that. So this was good to find out that when Karen showed up at his campaign fundraiser, that was the first time he ever met her in person.
With her and with Alan Jackson, her attorney.
I think I'm their chosen candidate to lead the DA's office in 2027.
Okay. Do you have you spoken with Alan Jackson more often than Karen Reed?
I've spoken with Alan Jackson more often than Karen Reed. He's a supporter who's asked about different ways that he might be able to support the campaign, and I've spoken with him several times.
Including before you were running?
I'm sorry?
Including before you were running for DA?
If we interacted during a federal investigation, I wouldn't be able to comment on it, but I think if you're looking at how federal investigations work and there are parties represented by attorneys, it's certainly possible that federal prosecutors interact with those attorneys in the course of those investigations. So I'm not going to pretend like I had never talked to Alan Jackson or David Yannetti, given that it has been publicly reported that there was a years-long federal investigation and that I was leading it.
Right. I have asked everyone this question. I'm curious your answer.
Which, by the way, if that's true, it also means they've seen the kind of prosecutor I am. And so that I think...
And chosen to endorse you.
And chosen to endorse me.
Who do you consider your biggest competition in this race and why?
So I think the biggest challenge in the race is that despite all the publicity, and I've now had thousands of conversations with voters across Norfolk County, there are so many people who do not know who their DA is and do not know what the DA does. And
so information, really.
Yeah, a little bit that.
Yeah.
It's a down ballot race in a non-presidential election year. And so the biggest challenge, the biggest competition we have are people who, when they get to that part of the ballot, might not check a box. I think a lot of it is competing against blank. And I think there are other candidates in this race who are qualified. I think I bring to the table a completely unique set of experiences and skills and differentiate from them. But really, I'm hopeful, and I'm glad that we're doing these interviews and that you're doing this reporting, because I'm hopeful that over the next 9 weeks, people start paying attention and realize what I've realized, which is the district attorney is in many ways the most important elected official in any community. On the day that somebody needs their DA's office, God forbid, it is usually on the worst day or one of the worst days of someone's life. Either you or a family member has been the victim of a serious crime, or you or a family member has been arrested for a serious crime. And on that day, it almost doesn't matter whether Adam Deitch is the elected district attorney. What matters is that the people that you're dealing with at the DA's office are competent and trustworthy and professional, and most of all, treat everyone the same. And that hasn't been the case in Norfolk County for years. That will be the case under my leadership as DA.
You don't want to name a specific person who you think is your top competition?
I've gotten to know a lot of the candidates. We go to these.
I've heard that from all of you, by the way.
Which
that
part?
You've all gotten to really know each other.
Yeah,
well.
and I genuinely like most of the candidates. I think, the reality is, to break down the race a little bit, there's one candidate in the race who DA Morrissey is backing, Greg Conner. If you want more of Michael Morrissey, you should vote for Greg Conner. If you want change, you should vote for me on September 1st. And there are other good candidates who are advocating for change, but no one who has the experience as a federal prosecutor, as a public corruption prosecutor, as someone who has investigated and prosecuted police misconduct cases. I also worked for the Innocence Project for years, and that kind of perspective, representing individuals who have suffered the repercussions of DA's offices and investigators who take shortcuts and rush to judgment and who've been wrongly convicted. I think that perspective is really important and unique for me as well. And it changes who I am as a candidate, a lawyer, and a prosecutor, and certainly shapes who I will be as DA.
Okay, I feel like you just did it, but I'm still going to give you your 30-second elevator pitch, which has been my last question for everybody. And you've all been given 30 seconds to say your piece, okay? 3, 2, 1.
How many tragedies do we have to see in Norfolk County before we do something about it? The reason I'm running is the answer to that question is we've had enough. As a federal prosecutor, I focused on public corruption cases across Massachusetts. I prosecuted police misconduct cases, and I bring to the table a unique set of experiences from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and as someone who has stood up to institutions like the state police to affect the kind of cultural change we need in the DA's office.
Time.
Now, I would have asked him, especially towards the end here where he's talking about his experience, I would have asked him what Rachel Rollins asked us to ask him about, his lack of supervisory experience. Or, what is his his management experience? Or is it a lack of? Because that's what his boss, Rachel Rollins, seemed to indicate. Rachel Rollins didn't seem to give him an endorsement. I would have asked him about that. I'm looking at some of the donations from Juna Perkins that she's received. I'm seeing some names we know. Lisa Colburn, who's she's one of the Canton folks that we know from Canton. She's donated to Juna Perkins recently. The select board member, Patricia Boyden, has been a regular contributor, you see here, contributing to Juna Perkins. Ralph Martin, a former DA, I think of Suffolk County, Boston. He's now an attorney with Prince Lobel, one of the biggest law firms in Boston. He gave her a $1,000 contribution just this month, July 1st. Her former boss, he used to be Juna Perkins' boss. He's not only endorsing her, he threw down $1,000. Also, I just looking at this, a current DA, the Cayman Islands DA, just threw down a donation for Juna Perkins as well. She's getting a lot of local donations from citizens, from residents, Canton, Boston, Medfield, Bellingham, Needham, Barnstable, Quincy, Brookline, Medfield, Wellesley, Situate, Milton, Norfolk, Canton, Wellesley, Milton, Cambridge, Needham, Braintree, Norwood, Needham, Stoughton, Squantum, East Walpole, Randolph, Stoughton, West Barnstable, Quincy. Those are some of her recent donations, some of the cities and towns. Does Morrissey look like a supervisor? Not much. That's what I think. That's what I think they need more than anything. I think they need somebody that's got management skills. That's what I'm worried about Deitch. I'm not convinced he has enough supervisor or management skills, but it's not up to me. I'm not voting. It's not my race. I'm not endorsing. I'm just bringing up the questions. I'm a commentator. I poke holes at all of them. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Juna Perkins. She's the final one we're going to review tonight. Hopefully we get done before 10 p.m. because I want to watch some World Cup now. Now that I know Eddie Vedder's there, I want to see what's going on. Maybe check out and see how our guy Eddie Vedder's doing. Again, these are all on CBS Boston. There's other interviews too. I'm going to throw their link in the chat if you want to check out all the interviews later. Or if you want to watch them in full, because like I said, I'm kind of skipping around. We're not watching the entire interviews. If you want to watch them without me talking.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
I
so much for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
The first question I'm asking everybody, here you go. Introduce yourself. Tell us why you're running. For
Boy,
DA.
they're losing now.
My name is Juna Perkins. I'm a lawyer in Dedham, and I'm running for Norfolk County District Attorney to restore fairness, justice, and integrity to the DA's office. I announced my campaign nearly 2 years ago now because as a former prosecutor, I was so upset with the failure, with the district attorney's failure to investigate the murder of Sandra Birchmore, investigate and prosecute the murder of Sandra Birchmore, because any experienced prosecutor would have recognized that that was a murder.
So you were the first candidate.
I wonder, Junith sounds a little hoarse in her voice here. I'm just wondering if she's lost her throat, like lost her voice. Maybe she's been campaigning all these 4th of July parades and meetups and things like that, or maybe she's got a cold or something. I don't know. But she sounds a little bit hoarse here, not her usual self, which, I'm sure happens to all these candidates, especially the ones who are out there pounding the pavement and still working a full-time practice like she is.
Declare in this race, and you declared at a time when we didn't even know if Michael Morrissey would be running for re-election.
Correct.
And
She
you're
doesn't
saying
sound.
Sandra Birchmore was the catalyst.
She might
for
be
you.
sick.
Talk to me more.
Might
about
have a
that.
cold.
So, I first started paying attention to the Norfolk DA's office when I had a case a couple of years ago that as a defense attorney, that I thought, well, this is very strange. This is not the way I was trained. Then in the summer of 2023, the district attorney's video statement that he put out in the Karen Reed case, which I thought was completely inappropriate.
Just to add context for viewers,
Sure.
this was a video that the DA put out, like a pre-recorded video,
Yes.
basically defending the witnesses in the case
Yes.
from what he called harassment.
Yes, but in this video, he vouched for the credibility of a witness, and specifically Trooper Proctor, which back then we didn't even know. The rest of us didn't know who Trooper Proctor was
Right,
about
the
all these
text had never
texts.
come out.
It was just he made a statement along the lines of, Trooper Proctor has no reason to lie. We shouldn't be doubting him, and that is a completely unethical statement for a prosecutor to make. So that really got my eyebrows up.
And just to clarify, unethical in general, not just because of what later came out
Correct.
about Trooper Proctor.
Correct,
Okay.
because a prosecutor should never make a public statement that could potentially prejudice the jury pool against the defendant.
Okay.
And so it's really like the most junior prosecutor knows that. And so that was shocking to me compared to all of my prosecutorial experience of 10 years. So that's what started me paying attention. But it was the Sandra Birchmore fiasco that really got me to run. So when it came out, I think in the Globe in the spring of 2024, I started speaking out about the district attorney's failure in that case in the Globe, and then in an op-ed piece in Lawyers Weekly. And by September, I realized that this pattern was not going to change. And so even though I'd never run for office before, had never planned on it, this is my life's work, fighting for justice for victims of crime for 33 years in Massachusetts, and I couldn't just sit by and do nothing, even if that meant running against somebody who had an incredible amount of political power and influence in Norfolk County.
So for you, the catalyst was that Globe report about the independent medical examiner's review of Sandra Birchmore's death, saying that it was a homicide, not a suicide.
Yes. I think there may have even been an earlier story that was just talking about how the district attorney hadn't requested an order compelling a DNA sample. But maybe it was the same story, I'm not sure.
So this has actually been something that's come up with each candidate I'm speaking to. In that case, what happened was the state's medical examiner had ruled it a suicide, and that seemed to be really where the investigation ended in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, and nobody was charged. What would you have done differently if you had been DA at the time?
Well, first of all, what viewers really need to know is that it's the district attorney who is statutorily responsible for all death investigations. It's not the medical examiner and it's not the police. All three have to work together, but the buck stops with the district attorney. So if the district attorney gets a series of police reports and the medical examiner's report, looks at them and says, I don't know if this really all fits. Their job is to go back to the medical examiner and say, are you sure you considered this? Are you sure you considered that? What about this piece of information? What about that piece of information? To make sure that they have all the relevant information, because the ME can't make that decision without input from the police and the district attorney. So that's what I want. The main thing I would have done differently. And certainly when the family had the independent medical examiner, Michael Baden, who is one of the most famous medical examiners in the country, determined that was a homicide, I would then go back to our medical examiner and be asking them to relook at that again. And then again, when the feds indicted Matthew Farwell for the death, when they had their own independent medical examiner conclude the same thing, again, that's a time to reopen what you were thinking in the first place. and revisit that decision. But the district attorney didn't. So until the spring of 25, maybe even now, I don't know, but I heard him say in the spring of 2025, which was after both of these
Right.
independent medical examiners, that he still believed it was a suicide. And the irony about that, the reliance on the medical examiner's decision, is that in the murder of John O'Keefe, the medical examiner found that the manner of death was inconclusive.
Undetermined, yeah.
Undetermined. And yet the district attorney decided to charge murder. So he knows he has the discretion, despite what the medical examiner's opinion is, to move forward on other charges. And so even if the medical examiner had continued to insist that it was a suicide, he could have still charged murder.
So if you were elected district attorney, what would you do in the Birchmore case, if anything, now? Is it too late?
So it depends. It really, and this
Very
is
lawyer
that's a
answer.
lawyer answer, I know. But it's true, because there are a million different factors that you have to consider. First of all, the travesty is that her own community didn't speak with her, speak for her. And if we do not speak for the most vulnerable in our community, we have no government at all. And so that is an incredible travesty that we did not do the job. But second to that, now that the feds have indicted him, not on murder charges, but on charges that could lead, if convicted, to a life sentence without the possibility of parole, if he gets that sentence, you're not going to get much more by a murder conviction. So, the maximum sentence for murder in Massachusetts is life without parole.
So it could be a waste of resources.
Exactly, and it could be putting the family through something that would be another torture for however many years. That said, if he doesn't get convicted, or if the sentence for some reason is less than life without parole, then that's a conversation with the family, and the decision should be made then.
I want to ask you about a few other particular cases in Norfolk County, which have been pretty high profile in the last few years, and some are still ongoing. You mentioned the Karen Reed case. I'm asking everybody this same question. If you had been DA in January of 2022, when Officer O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's front lawn in Canton, would you have charged Karen Reed, and what charges would you have sought?
So that is a good question. I think that there was certainly probable cause to believe that she had driven under the influence. I think probable cause to believe that she had struck him and somehow caused his death. Whether or not that was beyond a reasonable doubt evidence is another question, and clearly the jury was unsatisfied both times with that level of evidence. I think I might have gotten to the point where I didn't believe there was enough evidence long before the trial, but I definitely would not have charged her with murder, because that, I think that was one of the really confusing things for the jury too, is that you've charged her with OUI manslaughter and also second-degree murder. And those two crimes have different elements that you need to prove that conflict with each other. So in a murder case, you're supposed to have the intent to kill. And in an OUI case, if you are, the one crime that can be refuted by alcohol is a specific intent crime. So if she's that intoxicated, she can't form an intent to commit to murder. So if you're arguing both, which they were, what are you trying to tell the jury?
But I think the nuanced attempted argument, which we know failed because she was acquitted of that charge, was that it wasn't intentional, it was knowing.
Yes, but the thing about this is that it's not only the legal determination that you're looking at as a prosecutor, it's also what will the jury think? And a jury is driven a lot more by just common sense and what does justice look like in this particular case. And so those are considerations that, that's just as important as a consideration sometimes as what technical legal argument you might be able to make. I have not talked to any of my former colleagues in the DA's office or the Attorney General's office who believed that this should have been charged as a murder. I mean, and it blew up.
Right. So given what was presented publicly, the evidence or lack thereof, what would have been, with that material, like the ideal outcome for the victim in your mind?
I mean, so one thing that is, I think, the worst thing to do to a family, and one of the things that we're taught as prosecutors, is never make a promise that you can't keep. And so don't tell a family, I can get you a murder conviction on this, she'll go to prison for life without parole, and put that in their heads. It's much better to tell them, this is the best outcome here's all the evidence that we have. Here's A problem, B problem, C problem. Here's the best we think we can do. and let's try to get you that. And there's many things to consider. How long do you want this to be open? Is it, are you okay with this lasting a really, really long time? Or do you really just need to be able to move on? So sometimes it's conversations with the family about that, but really it's not over-promising. Yeah, and certainly the decision to retry the case, I think, especially that day, was really cruel. Typically, what would happen after you got to tell them, this is the best outcome we can. Here's all the evidence that we have. Here's A problem, B problem, C problem. Here's the best we think we can do, and let's try to get you that. And there's many things to consider. How long do you want this to be open? Is it, are you okay with this lasting a really, really long time? Or do you really just need to be able to move on? So sometimes it's conversations with the family about that, but really it's not over-promising.
Freeze frames a little behind. He's talking about when Greg Connor called what he does in industry. Freeze frame says, yes, industry, LOL. I would say in this field or profession. Yes, I'm behind. Yeah, you're behind, but you're catching up. Appreciate you, freeze frame. Thank you for being here. Well, now we know why Karen Reed favors Daesh. Yeah, I wasn't really happy with that response from Juna myself, but maybe the industry of corruption and lies. There you go, freeze frame. Yeah, I think that's what he meant. I think that's exactly what he meant. The industry of collecting donations from your future employees. That's the industry he's in. Where it's an honor to collect donations from people you're going to be supervising possibly later.
Yeah, and certainly the decision to retry the case, I think, especially that day, was really cruel. Typically, what would happen after you got a hung jury like that, you go back to your office, you take a couple weeks, you bring in all your experts, you review what the evidence was, what you have, and you try to make a deal. Because clearly, a prosecutor has an ethical obligation not to bring a case that they don't believe that they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. After you have a hung jury, in this particular, the way this hung jury came out, which is clearly they were not satisfied with the evidence, you clearly can't really make that burden unless you're going to make your case much better. So then the obligation is to go back and try to get something out of it for the family.
Right, but we got that statement from the DA that we plan to retry this case within hours.
Exactly,
of the
exactly.
mistrial.
And that was yet another red flag for me. That was a decision that was based on ego, and that it was more important for the district attorney to be right than it was to serve justice, and that was incredibly appalling to me. And that's why at the time I called for the district attorney's resignation right then. Partly because of that decision, partly because of everything that had gone before, and also by then we knew about the first round of the Trooper Proctor texts. And in my mind, there is no way that people in the district attorney's office at the highest level did not know who Trooper Proctor was. There is no way, because they physically worked in the same building. They were having lunch together, smoking cigarettes in the front of the building, having drinks after work, and working together literally on these cases. To me, the failure to do something about Trooper Proctor much before this is appalling, because somebody doesn't wake up one day and start saying all those kinds of
She just took a dig at Lally for smoking cigarettes in front. I think she did. That was good. She pokes at people. I like that.
things and texting all those things.
Well,
That's
no,
who he is.
the messages were, decade old.
Yes.
We'll get to Proctor in 1 minute, but I want to just get
sure,
your
sorry.
kind of final statement on DA Morrissey. What's your current position on him and his role, and how he's handled the public pressure the last 3 years?
I think after the second round of the Trooper Proctor texts, I called for his resignation again. He just has not served the community well at all. And I think in part that's because he was never a professional prosecutor himself. He was a politician first, and that has played an enormous role in the decisions that he made, or at least it appears so. I've heard from many, many families during this campaign about mistreatment by the district attorney's office, unfair treatment, mistreatment meaning just being mean and disrespectful to families of who have had very serious things happen to them or their children, and then hiding from, digging his heels in. When the job of the prosecutor is to keep an open mind. You are always supposed to keep an open mind to the evidence so that you don't make biased decisions.
And my final pin in the Karen Reed question is, if you were elected to this position, you have a lot of people and very vocal people in that county who believe that somebody else killed John O'Keefe. How do you deal with those calls, and what would your plan be if you're getting calls to reopen an investigation?
So, first things first, anytime anyone dies, it's a tragedy.
Right.
And especially when someone is committed to public service and they're a family, and they're a family man taking care of his niece and nephew, it is an incredibly tragic story. And everyone deserves justice, no matter who they are. So, but the problem is, the district attorney and the police made so many mistakes in this case that the only way anyone else could ever be convicted is to have some kind of perfect evidence that would be absolutely unassailable.
That no one has discovered
That no
yet?
one has yet
Okay.
discovered. Like a video of literally showing him being actually killed. Right. And the likelihood of us finding such a thing is virtually impossible. Very unlikely given the amount of investigation that's already gone on. And because of that, anyone you prosecuted now would be able to make all the arguments that Karen Reed made, plus be able to argue, it wasn't me, it was Karen Reed. The DA's office believed it, the police believed it, and that's beyond a reasonable doubt. So again, you're at this point where you should not promise. The lawyer's job is not to tell you what you want to hear. It's to tell you what you need to know. And that's also what a leader does, is tell you what you need to know. Sometimes those decisions are unpopular, but that is the job.
Let's get to Michael Proctor. Two-part question. One is, how would you have handled his situation differently if you had been in charge at the time? And then looking to the future, whoever's elected to this position is going to have to deal with the continuous fallout from his text messages that have come out. So what's your plan?
So I think, first of all, I would have a policy where all staff are required to report any suspected police misconduct, which includes things like these text messages. The problem with them is that they show bias they show that this person despises a tremendous number of people who live in our community that he is supposed to be helping. And so that's a problem. And so I would have a policy that would require staff to report that. And then as soon as I learned about it, that would be reported to his institute, to their employer. And also I would have asked for his reassignment immediately. The district attorney is not the supervisor of the state police, but they do have influence over which troopers get assigned to that unit.
Right, they can't get him fired, but they can get him out of their office.
Right, and they can also report to the Post Commission. They can also put that person on the Brady list, which is the list of police officers who have been so discredited by their misconduct.
Which now this all has happened.
Yes, exactly. So I would have done all those things.
Yeah.
There's also questions about what to have done with his evidence in the trial.
Right.
As a trial lawyer, what you would do is you would try to minimize his role in the trial and bring it out first yourself. That's kind of common techniques. And then beyond that, I believe that most of them have actually already been reassigned. But anybody who worked under Sergeant Buchanan during the relevant time periods we're talking about, I would ask for reassignment. To be reassigned. And then there's the question of all the cases that are impacted by Trooper Proctor.
Brian Walsh,
Exactly.
Miles King.
Exactly. I think that those cases, it's just like the crime lab scandal. We're going to have to pull all of those cases pending and closed that he worked on and figure out whether or not his biases may have played a role in the outcome, and if so, then we're going to have to revisit those cases.
Okay, last specific case I want to ask you about is Aidan Carney's case, known as Turtle Boy. He's facing a number of witness intimidation charges in Norfolk County. That's set to go to trial, honestly, right around the time the next DA would be getting sworn in. What would your plan be for those cases?
So I would certainly look at them all, because I definitely, I cannot say that I know the ins and outs of most, if not all, of those cases. The one I really, they're definitely, from what I have seen, there are some that may not meet the definition of the crime. There may be others that do. So I think it would take an individual review of each one of those cases.
And you think you would do that?
Yeah, yeah, I would. I think that's fair, because I think that at least some of those cases, I believe to have been influenced by the same kind of ego-driven decisions of the Karen Reed case. Like once you dig your heels in, you just can't let go, and so everything you just keep spinning and spinning on the same things. But I've seen some of what what Aidan Carney has written.
I love how she called him Turtle Boy. That was funny. Go ahead.
On X, and I think it's appalling. And the way he talks about people, the way he talks about women, that is not journalism, and that is not free speech. That is just cruel. So, whether or not it's criminal is another question.
Right.
But
So
yeah,
you would take a look at it, basically.
I would definitely take a look at it.
Having said all that, she sounds like she's like us, like me. She doesn't like the guy, but she'll be fair with him. It sounds. I think she sounds more. Honestly, she sounded more convincing that she would take a fair look at Turtle Boy. More convincing to me than Adam, which is surprising. Like if I was Turtle Boy, I'd be happier. If I was Aidan Carney, I'd be happier about Juna's answer more than probably Adam Deisha at this point. Like if you really look at what they said there. Interesting. No, we're not frozen over here. I don't know. Is anyone else frozen? I think maybe it's your YouTube. Maybe hit the restart button.
Okay. Let me see. Let me just check my notes quickly to make sure I'm up to date. I want to make sure I'm asking you all the things I wanted to. Oh, I did happen to.
That's the thing. Like you could think Aidan went over the line. Aidan did shady shit, which I agree. I think he did all of it. But at the same time, the whole investigation of it, the whole prosecution seems shady because the same cops that he was criticizing, Tully, were investigating him. So like that's what, and even what the other guy said that we started off with, Jubenville, whatever his name is, Bobby. Bob said it best. He said, you could tell right away that this was personal for them when they could have just issued a warrant and had him turn himself in, but instead they decided to pick him up at the bus stop. I mean, that was vindictive. And I think that's the whole problem with the Turtle Boy prosecution, no matter where you stand on it. It's too political.
Notice. I looked through everybody's campaign contributions. I noticed one name on yours that stuck out to me is Rita Lombardi. Do you know her personally? I'm curious. She was a very vocal leader in the Free Karen Reed movement. She kind of took a backseat in trial number 2, but that's kind of how she's known in the area. Have you had conversations with her?
Yes. So she, I first was introduced to her by.
This is wild. I wonder, I gotta read her up right now. I don't know if Rita knows she came up in this. Wow, Rita. Oh, the antis are trying to make Rita Lombardi a campaign issue for Juna. This is funny.
A state representative, actually.
Okay.
And then I was on a podcast, and she was the guest after me, and she was saying all these incredibly positive things about me, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So yes, I have met her.
I think that was my show. I have a feeling that might have either my show or Brian from LTL she's talking about. I'm not sure. That's funny.
She has supported candidates who are similar to me in Canton. She's a Canton resident.
Right.
So,
And she's run for office.
I didn't
Unsuccessfully,
even-
she ran for select board.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, she has supported some of the same candidates who also.
And she almost won. Rex, you should have noted that she defeated an incumbent that night too. Rita Lombardi. She didn't win the election, but she got more votes than an incumbent. That's saying a lot.
Support and endorse me in Canton, and I think Cantonians were rightly really, really upset about what had been going on in their community for a long time. So yeah, I mean, Yep.
There we go. Again, another question I'm making sure I ask everybody. Who do you consider to be your biggest competition in this race, and why?
Yeah, well, I think that Michael Morrissey's handpicked successor is the lead opponent, and I think that's because he has Michael Morrissey's support.
And that's Greg Connor?
And that's Greg Connor. He has Michael Morrissey's support. He's been in the office for a long time. The district attorney is advocating on his behalf, making phone calls to other politicians and other elected influencers, introducing him to fundraising outlets. So yeah, I think that he is the most likely primary,
And you think that
biggest
influence
contender.
of D.A. Morrissey still sticks in the community despite the last few years?
Absolutely. I think there's people who, a lot of people still know Michael Morrissey. A lot of people still are, owe him thanks for getting him out of scrapes and or helping them get jobs. So I think there is a lot of that influence there, but also our county is changing and it's a lot different. And I definitely feel like all over our county, we are seeing town after town change their leadership based on from entrenched politicians to candidates who really are not politicians, but they're just sitting in their homes and looking outside and saying, we need to fix this. And that's why I believe so many of them have endorsed me, because they are change makers themselves, and I think that they see in other change makers me.
Her endorsement list, it is, I mean, I've never seen somebody get so many endorsements from like select board members. Every day she's posting new ones. It's funny how Rita Lombardi came up in this interview. They try to use Rita Lombardi against Juna Perkins. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to work. It's funny. I think it will actually help Juna. I think a lot of people do like Rita Lombardi. Yeah, a lot of the women in Canton, a lot of the women you saw who stood up for John O'Keefe, for Karen Reed in Canton, a lot of them are supporting Juna Perkins.
And
Okay, my final question,
sure.
which again I'm asking everyone and it requires my phone, is that I'm going to give you 30 seconds for your final elevator pitch, whatever you want to
Sure.
get in. Okay, ready? And go.
I think, can we start again? Or you're going to take it away
you have
from me?
25 seconds. You got it. Go ahead. Just what do you want people to know?
So justice is really important to me. I became a lawyer to be the voice for others that I hadn't had for myself as a kid. I had a pretty tough childhood. My mother died by suicide when I was a baby. And so I decided to run because everyone deserves justice and no one is above the law. And I think that's why so many people have endorsed me, including Scott Harshbarger, Ralph Martin.
I have to call you at 10.
Okay.
This is what I did not like, this whole 30 seconds thing. Well, especially when you didn't give everyone the same amount of time in these interviews. You gave Daesh 40 minutes, you gave Juna 25. And then you're shutting her down about her endorsements. Yeah, actually, you didn't even give her 25. You gave her 23 minutes. But Juna keeps going. Juna's pretty good.
There you go, though. You got. I gave you 30 seconds. I did.
I gave you
research,
30.
Thank you.
on your website.
Oh.
So it seems like you've overcome a lot in your life.
Yeah, but
I think that's the thing. Like, you saw on her website what she overcame. You should just let her go on it. Like, let her go. Let her say her piece on it. Like, that seemed kind of flippant. I'm sorry. I don't know. It seemed kind of flippant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I hadn't talked about. In fact, there's people that when I was a prosecutor, I never really talked about it. But it was actually my kids who started saying, like, you should really talk about that, and because
Be
clearly
open
it's
about it,
related.
Yeah.
And I think it.
Yeah, literally. I mean, that's how it came off to me. She literally just said her mother took her own life, and Christina was basically like, okay, that's enough. You're done. Time over. That was weird. Sorry. I'm trying to be nice. I mean, I like that she did her research. I like that she looked into the campaign money.
The reason I talk about it partly is to say this is my motivation. I'm not like looking for an opportunity. I'm not going to be running for Congress in 4 years. And I'm not an opportunist. So this is what I'm doing, what I think is right, because if we don't speak for the most vulnerable among us, then we are shot, really, as a society. And injustice sucks. It really, like, I know what it feels like, and it's not good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
See, I think it's weird that you give the person with the most endorsements, and it seems like they have the most local donations. Maybe Connor has passed her, I'm not sure. But she's got more local donations than Daesh. She's got more endorsements than Daesh. And you give him like 15 minutes longer than Juna Perkins. That to me was weird. I'm sorry. And especially when she's telling her story at the end, just let her go. That was weird to me. You know? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think Juna Perkins is going to win this election. I do. I think she's going to be the one that wins. And they gave her 23 minutes. Kind of weird. I want to thank Sarah for being the one super chat tonight. We didn't make our goal. If we do the drama, we meet our goals. If we do something serious, we don't. You notice that? It's funny. But I want to thank Sarah. Thank you so much. You made it worthwhile. I'm going to head out. I'm going to go take care of Charlie, take him out. You'll be mean on my behalf. I know. I don't think she meant it. Like, I don't think Christina Rex I don't think she's mean on purpose. I just think that, the thing is, she might have taken on too much. She did 7 interviews. That's a lot of interviews to do. I don't know if she did this over 1 day, 2 days. That's maybe what it seems like. It maybe seems like she overdid it and she's like, oh man, I got to do another interview. And I know how that feels. Sometimes you overbook yourself. So I think maybe that could have played into this. I don't know. We don't know. But I didn't like it. It didn't feel good at the end. Yeah, we didn't make our goal, same as the US team. That means they're out, right? It's all over. Eddie Vedder's going home. That's it. It's all over then, huh? Who do they lose to tonight? I don't even know. I don't watch any of this stuff. You know what? I'm kind of glad that I gotta say, like now, because I heard about what Trump did. Trump pulled some shit. It's probably better off they lost, honestly. Do we need the rest of the world to continue to hate America? Like literally, like we don't need to give them more excuses to hate us. Like like if we won tonight, they'd be like, you cheated, which you can't really argue when you got the most powerful man in the world hosting the tournament, telling them you got to unsuspend this guy. I didn't like that. I didn't like it. Oh, they're all done till 2030. They're gonna wait 4 more years, huh? Will they get like that's the thing? If they get an attorney, right? Like you have to get into it, right? Sometimes you don't even get in. F the rest of the world. Not me. I love the rest of the world. You kidding me? You don't like Paris and France and come on. Come on, man. Yeah, if they won tonight, they would have been whipped by Spain on Friday anyway. There you go. See? Yeah, only happens every 4 years. I get it. Yeah, we used to have a World Cup in wrestling. I think they still do. Happens every 4 years too. It's like 2 years off of the Olympics. You know what I mean? The World Cup of wrestling. I wish I was in that. Oh, you've been to 50 countries? Come on, then. You don't say F the rest of the world. Then you must love some places you've been. You're just saying it in a sports way. I get it. All right, jerks. I think I'm headed out. I think I'm all done. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I want to cover tonight? Is there anything going on Twitter that I should be? I saw the antis had a big they had a big powwow spaces tonight, but I couldn't get in. I was blocked. It's funny to see like the big powwow on spaces and then I couldn't get into it. That happens a lot actually. I get blocked a lot on there from both sides. People can't handle it. Should I play the Lucky clip again? Have you guys seen the Lucky clip too many times today? That Lucky clip is making the rounds. Joe Flipahead, I guess, posted some guys' nudes, guys, and the Twitter was, "Why is a supposedly straight man keeping partially clothed photos of another man on his phone in the first place?" I know that's a thing on some of this shit. Some of the shit that goes on with the doxing and the photos, and like literally, that's what's on your phone. You guys need to find hobbies or something. Find a life. Did I hear about Nan on Untwisted Tragedies? No. What about Nan on? Was she on there today, Ruthie? I don't know. You want me to have a 2 hour long goodbye again? Oh, you want me to play the clip? I will. I'll play the clip again for you. Tell him. I want to know what happened with Nan. What happened with Nan? Do I need to play it? What is it? What happened with Nan? Was Twisted going over some stuff that happened in Nan? That's what I'm probably guessing is what you're probably talking about. I didn't see it, so I don't know. You have to let me know what you're talking about. Oh, she called in. Okay. We're gonna play it again. Why not? Why not play it again? Do it on the way out. See, every time this guy brings my name up, I don't feel bad about like calling out his bullshit. It's like I don't even want to do this anymore. But dude, every time you bring up my fucking name and you have all this embarrassing shit out there, dude, like you're an idiot. So why not play it? Keeps bringing up my name, bro. You keep bringing up my name. Play it on the show.
Are you planning on doing a show? You're going to go on a show?
I have no intentions of doing a Turtle Boy show. None.
How come?
Early on in the first trial, he was able to get an interview with me. It was an interview that should not have happened. And I was promised that he would protect me. And instead of protecting me, he threw my name out there, pretty much put me in an island all by myself, potentially putting, discipline actions against me from work. I confronted him the next day about it. His comment to me was, I had an obligation to get the information out there. That's fine, but you didn't have an obligation to put my name out there. You could have used other means of getting that information without giving me up. And he didn't hesitate but 30 seconds to throw me out there. And because of that, I will not go on the show.
Just that shit pissed me off. The Lucky shit pissed me the fuck off. Because nobody, and I mean fucking nobody.
It's all about him though. Like he fucked over Lucky. But his response is, I'm mad. I'm a baby. And then he'll lie. And then another lie. It's just like embarrassing, bro.
Did more to make sure that Lucky Lochran felt safe and comfortable.
That's what all abusers say. It's like textbook abuser talk. I made you safe. Every abuser says that. I protected you. So that's what the gangsters used to say. Gangsters used to say, "We're protecting the neighborhood. That's what Whitey used to say. We're protecting South Boston. We protect you."
And protected than me.
Like Turtle, do you even know anything about like the history of fucking gangsterism in South Boston and all that shit? Because that's exactly what Whitey used to say. We're protecting the neighborhood. We protected you. You sound like a wannabe gangster, bro. You're not protecting shit. You can't even protect yourself, bro. How the fuck are you protecting anybody? You can't even protect yourself. Worry about yourself, bro. Since that's clearly what all you do care about is yourself. You said it. Well, that should make me so mad. How do you think Lucky feels? You ever consider how mad Lucky was when you fucked him over? Yeah, protected the neighborhood as long as you kiss Turtle's ass or you pay Whitey his fee. I mean that's exactly it. Gangsterism. Yeah, I can't take any more of it either. It's just gross. So gross. He's a tough guy too. He thinks he's a tough guy. That's the fucking funniest shit of all. All right, jerks. I will see you tomorrow. We're going to be streaming live. We'll stream Taylor Robinson if anyone wants to watch that. I know there's a lot of competition streaming that, a lot of bigger channels, but we're gonna try to stream it. Hopefully, some people watch it with us tomorrow. Come check it out. We'll be streaming in the morning. Tyler Robinson. So far, it's not looking too good for the prosecution, I have to say. Some of their chief evidence got excluded today by the judge. And I can't blame the judge. It's like law enforcement keeps fucking up these cases. Thank you, Rosie. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, being here. Thank you, Sarah. All right, jerks. I will see you tomorrow. Yes, I'm going to go I got to take Charlie out right now, actually. That's a good call. So I do got to go. All right. Thank you, Kim. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out, jerks. Have a great night.